Marcus Chen sat in the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, surrounded by chandeliers and the city's wealthiest people. Everyone wore expensive suits and talked about their latest business deals. Marcus held a glass of champagne he hadn't touched. Honestly, he felt bored. 3 years ago, Marcus had sold his tech company for $50 million. Since then, his life had become a blur of fancy parties, business meetings, and luxury purchases that didn't really make him happy. But this was his world now. Or at least, that's what he told himself. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Marcus almost ignored it. At events like this, taking calls was considered rude. But when he glanced at the screen, his heart skipped a beat. It was Mrs. Patterson. She was his elderly neighbor from Brooklyn, from the old neighborhood where he grew up. She never called him. Ever. Marcus stepped away from the crowd and answered, "Mrs. Patterson, is everything okay?" Her voice came through, shaky and urgent. "Marcus, dear, you need to come home right now. Something's happening at your old house. The police are here, and there are people, and I don't know how to explain. Just please come quickly, police." "What do you mean? Is there a fire?" Marcus felt his chest tighten. "No fire. Just ... Please hurry. Your mother would want you here." She hung up. Marcus stood frozen for a moment. His mother had passed away 3 years ago, right before he sold his company. Mrs. Patterson knew exactly what she was doing by mentioning her. His mother, Patricia, had been his world. She'd worked 2 jobs to raise him alone in that small house in Brooklyn. After she died, Marcus couldn't bring himself to sell the house. He'd hired a property management company to maintain it, but he hadn't visited in almost 6 months. His business partner, David, walked over with a smile. "Marcus, the mayor wants to meet you." "Come on, this could be huge for I have to go," Marcus interrupted. "Go. The event just started. Where could you possibly need to be?" "Brooklyn. There's an emergency." David laughed. "Brooklyn. Marcus, you have people for that? Send your assistant. This networking opportunity is worth millions." Marcus looked at David, then at the room full of wealthy strangers. None of them knew where he came from. None of them knew his mother had scrubbed floors so he could go to college. They only knew the millionaire version of Marcus Chen. "I have to go," he repeated, and walked out. The drive from Manhattan to Brooklyn usually took 30 minutes. Marcus made it in 20. His mind raced faster than his car. What could be happening? Break-in? Vandalism? Mrs. Patterson had said the police were there. That meant something serious. As he drove through the Lincoln Tunnel, memories flooded back. He remembered being 12 years old, playing basketball on those Brooklyn streets until the streetlights came on. He remembered his mother coming home exhausted every night, but always asking about his homework first. He remembered the smell of her cooking, the sound of her laughter, the warmth of that small house that somehow held all the love in the world. When had he last thought about those times? Really thought about them? Marcus turned onto his old street and his stomach dropped. 3 police cars sat outside his childhood home, their lights flashing red and blue across the familiar houses. A small crowd of neighbors had gathered on the sidewalk. Mrs. Patterson stood on her porch, ring in her hands. He parked quickly and got out. The November air felt cold against his face. This neighborhood looked different than he remembered. The houses needed paint. The playground down the street had broken swings. When had everything become so run down? "Marcus." Mrs. Patterson hurried over as fast as her old legs could carry her. She grabbed his arm. "Thank God you're here. What's going on?" Marcus asked, looking at his house. The lawn was overgrown. The paint was peeling. His property management company had clearly stopped caring, but everything looked intact from the outside. A police officer approached. "Are you Marcus Chen, the property owner?" "Yes, what happened?" The officer, whose badge read Officer Rodriguez, looked uncomfortable. "Sir, we received calls about suspicious activity at this address. Your neighbor here said she'd been hearing noises for weeks. When we investigated, we found that someone has been living in your basement." Marcus felt anger flash through him. "Someone broke into my house." "Yes, sir. But this isn't a typical break-in situation." Officer Rodriguez glanced back at the house. There's a family inside. A mother and 3 children. They've been living there for about 2 months. A family. Marcus blinked. You mean squatters? Technically, yes. But sir, you should see the situation yourself before deciding how to proceed. Mrs. Patterson squeezed his arm tighter. Marcus, they're not criminals. Well, they broke in, but... You need to see them, please. Marcus walked toward his house, his heart pounding. The front door was open. He stepped inside and immediately noticed how clean everything was. Someone had been taking care of the place. The hardwood floors his mother had loved were polished. The air smelled like lemon cleaner. Officer Rodriguez led him toward the basement door. They're outside on the back porch. We asked them to wait there while we contacted you. Marcus descended the basement stairs and stopped cold. His old basement, where he used to play as a kid, had been transformed. There were sleeping bags neatly arranged in one corner. Children's drawings covered the walls. School textbooks sat stacked on an old table. A small camping stove sat in another corner. Everything was organized and clean. Clearly arranged by someone trying desperately to create a home in an impossible situation. His chest tightened. This wasn't the work of criminals or vandals. This was the work of a family trying to survive. He walked through the basement and out the back door to the porch. 3 children sat on the steps with a woman who looked exhausted beyond measure. The woman stood up quickly when she saw him, positioning herself between Marcus and her children. I'm sorry, she said immediately, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I'll leave right now. Just please don't have my children arrested. This is all my fault. Marcus looked at the 3 kids. A teenage girl, maybe 14, held a worn book against her chest. A boy around 10 sat close to his mother. And a little girl, no more than 7, had tears running down her cheeks. The teenage girl was clutching a book. Marcus could see the title, The Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. His breath caught. That was the exact same book that had changed his life when he was 14. His mother had bought it for him at a used bookstore. And it had inspired him to dream bigger, to study harder, to believe he could become something more than his circumstances. Officer Rodriguez stood behind Marcus. Sir, we need to know if you want to press charges. Breaking and entering is a serious crime. Everyone looked at Marcus. The mother's eyes pleaded silently. The children looked terrified. Mrs. Patterson watched from the doorway. Even Officer Rodriguez seemed to be hoping for mercy. Marcus opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Because suddenly, he wasn't seeing strangers on his porch. He was seeing his own mother, working herself to exhaustion. He was seeing himself at 14, hungry and scared but holding on to hope. He was seeing everything he'd forgotten in his pursuit of success. What would his mother do? Marcus stood frozen on his back porch, staring at the family before him. The November wind picked up, and he noticed the little girl shivering. She wore a thin jacket that had clearly been handed down too many times. Everyone inside, Marcus heard himself say, "We need to talk." The mother looked confused. Inside? But I thought it's cold out here, Marcus interrupted. The kids are freezing. Come inside. Officer Rodriguez raised an eyebrow, but nodded. They all moved into the living room. Marcus hadn't been in this room in months, but someone had clearly been living here. The furniture was dusted. His mother's old curtains were clean. Even the family photos on the wall had been carefully maintained. Marcus gestured for everyone to sit. The mother perched nervously on the edge of the sofa, her children pressed close to her. The teenage girl still clutched that book like it was a life preserver. What's your name? Marcus asked the mother. Sarah. Sarah Johnson. She swallowed hard. These are my children. Maya is 14, Jordan is 10, and Emma just turned 7. Marcus nodded at each child. Emma hid her face in her mother's side. Jordan stared at his shoes. But Maya looked directly at Marcus with a mixture of fear and defiance that reminded him of himself at that age. Tell me what happened, Marcus said quietly. Everything. Sarah's hands trembled as she began. I'm a nurse. Was a nurse? I worked at Brooklyn Methodist Hospital for 8 years. When they did budget cuts 6 months ago, I lost my job. I tried to find another position, but everything paid less, and I had 3 kids to feed. She paused, wiping her eyes. Emma has asthma. Bad asthma. She ended up in the hospital twice last year. Even with insurance, the medical bills were impossible. I had to choose between paying for her medications or paying rent. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. He'd spent $15,000 on a watch last month without thinking twice. Sarah continued. I lost our apartment 3 months ago. We stayed with my sister for a while, but she has 4 kids of her own in a 2-bedroom place. We were sleeping on her floor, and I could see we were making things too hard for her family. What about a shelter? Officer Rodriguez asked gently. I tried. The family shelters in Brooklyn have waiting lists months long, and the ones with immediate openings were... Sarah glanced at her children and lowered her voice. They weren't safe. I heard stories about what happens there, especially to teenage girls. I couldn't risk that. Maya squeezed her mother's hand. Marcus noticed the girl's defensive posture, the way she watched every movement he made. She was protecting her mother, ready to fight if needed. I started working overnight shifts at a different hospital in Queens, Sarah said. The pay was terrible, but it was something. My sister watched the kids at night. But I still couldn't save enough for an apartment. First month, last month, security deposit, application fees. It was impossible. She looked directly at Marcus. I'd been walking through this neighborhood for weeks, looking for 4 rent signs I could afford. There weren't any, but I kept noticing this house. It was always dark. The grass was overgrown. Mail piled up. After a month of walking past every day, I realized nobody was living here. Mrs. Patterson spoke up from the doorway. I should have said something sooner, Marcus. I noticed the house was empty. I called your property management company twice, but nobody ever came. Marcus made a mental note to fire that company immediately. I watched the house for another week, Sarah admitted, shame coloring her voice. I needed to be sure. Then one night, I broke the basement window. It was the smallest window, the one that would cost the least to replace. I kept track of everything I damaged, I swear. I was going to pay for it all. She pulled out a worn notebook from her pocket and handed it to Marcus. Inside, she'd listed everything in careful handwriting. Basement window, $150. Used electricity estimated $80. Water usage, $40. The list went on. She'd been keeping track of every penny, even though she had nothing. We only used the basement, Sarah said quickly. I didn't let the kids go upstairs. I didn't want to disturb anything. We kept everything clean. We never. Her voice broke. I'm not a criminal, Mr. Chen. I'm just a mother who ran out of options. Emma started crying softly. Jordan put his arm around his little sister. Maya's jaw was clenched. Tears sliding down her face even as she tried to look tough. Marcus felt like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed his heart. He remembered his mother's face when they'd almost lost their own house. He'd been 12. His mother had sat him down at their kitchen table and cried for the first time he'd ever seen. She'd said, Marcus, I don't know what we're going to do. They'd been so close to homelessness that they'd packed bags and slept with them by the door. Ready to leave if the sheriff came? They'd survived only because their church had taken up a collection. Strangers had saved them. Officer Rodriguez cleared his throat. Mr. Chen, I need your decision. Do you want to press charges? The room fell silent. Sarah closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. Her children pressed closer to her. Mrs. Patterson held her breath. Everyone waited. Marcus looked at the notebook in his hands, at Sarah's careful accounting of every small thing she'd used. He thought about his penthouse apartment that sat empty most nights. He thought about the $15,000 watch. He thought about his mother. No, Marcus said softly. No charges. Sarah's eyes flew open. What? I'm not pressing charges. Marcus stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where he'd grown up. But I have questions. Where do you work now? Queens Medical Center. Overnight shifts, 11 to 7, and the kids? Where do they go during the day? School, Sarah said quickly. They never missed a day. I made sure of that. Maya takes the subway with Jordan and Emma to their schools, then goes to her own. I picked them up before my shift. Marcus turned back to face them. Maya, what's that book you're holding? The teenage girl looked down at the book like she'd forgotten she had it. Benjamin Franklin's autobiography. I found it on your bookshelf. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have taken it. I'll put it back. Where did you find it? Marcus asked. In the study upstairs? I know Mom said not to go upstairs, but I needed something to read. I've read it 3 times now. Marcus felt something shift inside him. Why that book? Maya looked surprised by the question. Because he started with nothing and became everything. He taught himself. He worked hard. He made his own opportunities. I want to be like that. I want to learn computer programming and build apps that help people. This book makes me believe I can do it, even when everything feels impossible. Those words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He'd said almost the exact same words to his mother when he was Maya's age. Holding that same book, he walked over to Maya and knelt down so he was at her eye level. Keep the book, he said. It's yours now. What? Maya whispered. That book changed my life when I was your age. Maybe it'll change yours too. Marcus stood up and looked at Sarah. Officer Rodriguez, thank you for your time. There's no crime here, Mr. Chen. Are you sure? The officer asked. I'm sure. Officer Rodriguez nodded slowly, then looked at Sarah. Ma'am, you're very lucky. I hope you understand what could have happened here. I do, Sarah whispered. Thank you. Thank you so much. After the police left, an awkward silence filled the room. Sarah stood up, gathering her children. We'll leave right now. I'll find somewhere. Thank you for not having us arrested. That's more than I deserved. Right, Marcus said. Where will you go? Sarah's face crumbled. I don't know. But that's not your problem. You've been kind enough. Marcus looked at the 3 children. Emma was still crying. Jordan looked exhausted. Maya stood tall, trying to be brave, but Marcus could see the fear in her eyes. What would his mother do? He knew the answer. His mother would never turn away a family in need. Never. Stay, Marcus said. Everyone stared at him. Stay here, Marcus repeated. Temporarily, until you get back on your feet. Sarah shook her head. No, we can't. You don't even know us. You're right, I don't. But I know what it's like to be 1 bad month away from losing everything. My mother and I almost lost this house when I was 12. If people hadn't helped us, I don't know where we'd have ended up. Marcus ran his hand through his hair. Look, I have conditions. You keep working. The kids stay in school. You maintain this house. And you save every penny you can so you can get your own place eventually. Deal? Sarah just stared at him, tears flowing freely now. Why would you do this? You don't owe us anything. Marcus thought about his mother's last words before she died. She'd squeezed his hand and said, Marcus, you're going to be successful. I know it, but promise me something. Promise me you'll never forget where you came from. Promise me you'll help others the way people helped us. He'd promised. Then he'd forgotten, until tonight. Because someone gave me a chance once, Marcus said quietly. Maybe it's time I passed it forward. Mrs. Patterson wiped her eyes from the doorway. Patricia would be so proud of you right now. Sarah couldn't speak. She just nodded, crying too hard to form words. Her children gathered around her. They held each other tight. Marcus felt something in his chest that he hadn't felt in years. It felt like purpose. It felt like coming home. The next morning, Marcus called his property management company and fired them on the spot. Then he called his lawyer and set up a formal temporary housing agreement with Sarah. Everything legal, everything proper. He wouldn't have questions later. But as he drove back to Manhattan that night, his phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The news had already spread through his social circle. Millionaire shows mercy to squatters, read one headline. His business partner David called 6 times. Marcus finally answered. What? What? David's voice was sharp. Marcus, what were you thinking? The whole industry is talking about this. You made yourself look weak. I helped a family in need. You enabled criminals. They broke into your property. You should have prosecuted them and moved on. Now, every opportunist in New York will think you're an easy target. Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. They're not criminals, David. They're people who fell through the cracks of a system that's supposed to protect them. Jesus, Marcus, when did you become a social worker? This isn't you. Maybe it should be, Marcus said quietly and hung up over the next week. Marcus found himself thinking about Sarah and her children constantly. He tried to focus on his investments and business meetings, but his mind kept wandering. On Wednesday, he drove back to Brooklyn with groceries. It felt awkward standing on his own porch, knocking on his own door. Sarah answered, looking surprised. Mr. Chen, I brought some food. For the kids? Marcus held up several bags from Whole Foods. Sarah's eyes widened when she saw how much food he'd brought. This is too much. We can't accept all this. The kids need to eat. I remember being a hungry teenager. Maya's at that age where she's probably always hungry. A small smile crossed Sarah's face. She could eat an entire refrigerator if I let her. They carried the bags to the kitchen, and Marcus stopped short. The kitchen was spotless. His mother's old kitchen, which the property management company had let fall into disrepair, now gleamed. The ancient stove had been scrubbed until it shined. The cracked tile floor had been cleaned, and the cracks filled with some kind of putty. Even the ceiling, which had water stains, had been painted. You did all this? Marcus asked. Sarah looked embarrassed. I'm sorry if I overstepped. I had some extra paint from when I used to volunteer with Habitat for Humanity, and the cleaning just needed time and effort. I wanted to take care of the house since you're letting us stay. Marcus touched the counter, running his hand over the smooth surface. My mother would have loved seeing her kitchen look like this. Mrs. Patterson told me about your mother, Sarah said softly. She sounded like an amazing woman. She was. Marcus felt a lump in his throat. This was her favorite room. She loved cooking here. Just then, the front door burst open, and 3 voices filled the house. The kids were home from school. Mom, I aced my math test. Jordan's voice echoed through the hallway. I got picked for the school play, Emma squealed. Mom, the library had the coding book I wanted, and Maya stopped short when she saw Marcus in the kitchen. Oh, Mr. Chen. Hi. The 3 children stood in the doorway, suddenly quiet. They looked cleaner than last week, Marcus noticed. Their clothes were worn but freshly washed. Their backpacks were old but organized. Despite everything they'd been through, Sarah was keeping them together. Hey, Marcus said, feeling suddenly awkward. I just dropped off some groceries. That's really nice of you, Maya said carefully. She was still wary of him, Marcus could tell. Was probably wondering when he'd change his mind and kick them out. Emma tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mom, is the nice man staying for dinner? Oh, sweetie, Mr. Chen is busy. He has. I'd love to stay for dinner, Marcus heard himself say. Everyone looked at him in surprise, including Marcus himself. What was he doing? He had a business dinner in Manhattan in 2 hours. But somehow, he found himself texting his assistant to cancel it. Dinner was simple spaghetti and salad. But as Marcus sat at his mother's old table, listening to Emma talk excitedly about her school play and Jordan explain his math test, felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt like he was part of a family. Maya was quiet through most of dinner, watching Marcus with cautious eyes. Finally, she spoke up. Mr. Chen, can I ask you something? Call me Marcus, and sure. Why did you really let us stay? Nobody does something like this without a reason. Sarah looked mortified. Maya, that's rude. No, it's okay, Marcus said. He thought about how to answer. These kids had been let down by adults before. They deserved honesty. My mom and I almost lost this house when I was about your age. We were so close to being homeless. People helped us, strangers mostly, and that's the only reason we survived. I guess I never paid that forward until now. I studied his face, then nodded slowly. That book you gave me? Benjamin Franklin's autobiography? Okay, he writes about always paying your debts. Not just money debts, but moral debts. It's like when someone helps you, you owe it to the universe to help someone else. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Yeah, exactly like that. Cool, Maya said, and went back to eating her spaghetti. But Marcus saw a tiny smile on her face. After dinner, Marcus helped with dishes. Sarah tried to protest, but he insisted. As they stood side by side at the sink, Sarah spoke quietly. "You know, I've been thinking about what you said, about saving money for our own place. I've been doing the math over and over, and I don't see how it's possible. Even with this incredible gift you've given us, even with my job, the rent in this city is just—" "What if you didn't have to pay rent here?" Marcus asked. Sarah turned to look at him. What if this was just your home for now? No rent. You focus on saving money, and when you have enough for a real start somewhere, you move out. No pressure, no timeline. Marcus, that's too much. You're already doing too much." "Maybe," Marcus admitted. "Or maybe I'm finally doing what I should have been doing all along." That weekend, Marcus came back again, this time with his laptop. He'd told himself he was just checking on the house. But when Maya saw him on the porch, her eyes lit up. "Are you here to stay?" Emma asked hopefully. "Just for a few hours," Marcus said. "Can you help me with something?" Maya asked. "I'm trying to learn Python programming, but I'm stuck on this one problem." Marcus felt a spark of excitement. Programming was his world. "Show me." They spent the next 3 hours at the kitchen table, Marcus teaching Maya the basics of coding. She was a natural, picking up concepts faster than some programmers he'd hired for his company. Her mind worked logically, creatively, seeing solutions he wouldn't have thought of. "You're really good at this," Marcus told her. Maya's face flushed with pride. "Really? You're not just saying that? I built a $50 million tech company. Trust me, I know talent when I see it. You could do this professionally if you wanted." "I want to," Maya said fiercely. "I want to build apps that help people like my mom. Like other families who are struggling. I want to create something that matters." Marcus looked at this 14-year-old girl who'd been living in his basement a week ago, who'd lost her home but not her dreams, and he felt humbled. When had he last built something that mattered? When had he last thought about helping people instead of just making money? "I think you will," Marcus said softly. "I really think you will." That night, driving back to his penthouse, Marcus realized he hadn't thought about his next business deal once all day. He'd been too busy teaching Maya, too busy listening to Jordan's jokes, too busy playing cards with Emma. His phone rang. It was David again. "Marcus, we need to talk. The board is concerned about your recent behavior. You're missing meetings, canceling dinners. Where's your head at?" Marcus looked out at the city lights, then thought about the warm kitchen in Brooklyn, the sound of children's laughter, the feeling of teaching someone who actually wanted to learn. "My head's exactly where it needs to be," Marcus said, hung up, for the first time in 3 years since his mother died. Marcus Chen felt like he was finally awake. Marcus started spending more time in Brooklyn than in Manhattan. At first, he told himself he was just checking on his investment, making sure Sarah and the kids were keeping up their end of the deal. But the truth was simpler and more complicated than that. He liked being there. For the first time in years, he felt like he was part of something real. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Marcus showed up after dinner to tutor Maya in programming. She was making incredible progress, already building simple apps and websites. One evening, she showed him a project she'd been working on secretly. "It's called Safe Haven," Maya explained, pulling up a prototype on her laptop. "It's an app that helps homeless families find resources. Like it would show available shelter beds, soup kitchens, free clinics, legal aid services, all in one place. It's updated in real time." Marcus stared at the screen, his heart pounding. "Maya, this is brilliant. Do you know how many people this could help?" "That's the idea." She looked at him nervously. "But I don't know how to make it actually work. Like the real database stuff, the server side, that's beyond what I know." "I can teach you," Marcus said immediately. "Or better yet, I can introduce you to some developers from my old company. Would you like that?" Maya's eyes went wide. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. You have something here, something important." But it wasn't just Maya who was changing Marcus's life. It was all of them. Jordan had joined the local middle school basketball team, and Marcus found himself at games on Saturday mornings, cheering louder than anyone else in the gym. When Jordan scored his first basket, he looked into the stands and grinned at Marcus like he was looking at his dad. That look made Marcus's chest ache in a way he couldn't quite explain. Emma had gotten the lead role in her school. Play a production of The Wizard of Oz. She was playing Dorothy. Every evening she practiced her lines in the living room, and Marcus became her favorite audience. She'd make him play the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Lion in turn, even though his acting was terrible. "You're the worst lion ever," Emma told him seriously one evening. "I know," Marcus laughed. "I'm much better at computers than acting." "That's okay," Emma said, patting his hand. "You can be my friend instead." Those simple words hit Marcus harder than any business deal ever had. Sarah was thriving too. Stable housing and no rent to pay. She'd been able to save money and pay off some of her medical debt. Her stress levels had dropped, and Marcus noticed she smiled more easily now. She'd even started taking an online course in nursing management, working toward a promotion at the hospital. One evening, Sarah pulled Marcus aside. "I need to show you something." She led him to the basement, which had been transformed into a proper living space. The sleeping bags were gone, replaced by real beds that Sarah had found at a thrift store and refurbished herself. The walls were painted a cheerful yellow. Children's artwork hung in frames. A small rug covered the concrete floor. "I've been saving every penny," Sarah said. "I've got almost $3,000 now. In another few months, I should have enough for first and last month's rent somewhere. Maybe not in Brooklyn, but somewhere nearby." Marcus looked at the hopeful, determined expression on her face and felt something twist in his chest. He should be happy. This was the goal, wasn't it? Get the family back on their feet so they could move on. So why did the thought of them leaving make him feel so empty? "That's great, Sarah," he managed to say. "Really great." But that night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He stood in his penthouse apartment, looking out at the city lights, feeling more alone than he'd felt in years. This place was huge, expensive, and completely soulless. When had he last felt at home here? When had he last felt at home anywhere except that small house in Brooklyn? His phone buzzed. It was a text from Mrs. Patterson. "You should know that other families on this street are struggling too. The Johnsons 3 doors down are about to lose their house. The Rodriguez family's son needs money for college. This neighborhood needs help, Marcus. Your mother always dreamed of making it better." Marcus stared at that message for a long time. The next morning, he called an emergency meeting with his financial advisor. "I want to set up a foundation," Marcus said. His advisor, Robert, looked concerned. "A foundation? Marcus, are you sure? That's a major commitment." "I'm sure. I want to start with $10 million from my personal assets." Robert's eyes went wide. $10 million? Marcus, that's a significant portion of your liquid assets. Have you really thought this through? I have. The foundation will focus on housing assistance, job training, and education support for families in my old neighborhood in Brooklyn.
Old.
The return on investment. This isn't about ROI, Marcus interrupted. This is about doing something that actually matters. Over the next few weeks, Marcus threw himself into setting up the foundation. He named it the Second Chance Foundation after his mother, Patricia, who'd always believed everyone deserved a second chance. He bought 2 more properties on his old street, planning to renovate them for transitional housing. His wealthy friends thought he'd lost his mind. "You're throwing away millions on charity cases," David said bluntly over lunch one day. "I'm investing in people," Marcus corrected. "People who will just drag you down? Marcus, you worked hard to escape that neighborhood. Why are you going back?" Marcus set down his fork and looked at his former friend. "I didn't escape that neighborhood, David. That neighborhood made me who I am. Every good thing about me came from there. My work ethic, my determination, my values. I learned all of that from my mother and from the people in that community. I didn't escape it. I forgot it. And that's a mistake I'm not going to make anymore." David shook his head. "You're going to regret this," maybe Marcus said. "But I regret the last 3 years more." The foundation launched on a cold day in January. Marcus held a small gathering at the Brooklyn house, inviting his neighbors, Sarah, and the kids. Mrs. Patterson and a few local community leaders. No press, no cameras, just people. He stood in his mother's living room and spoke from the heart. 3 months ago, I got a phone call that changed my life. I came back to this house expecting to find criminals. Instead, I found a mirror. I saw what my mother and I could have become if people hadn't helped us when we needed it most. This foundation exists because of that phone call, because of a family who reminded me what really matters. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes. Maya stood tall, holding Emma's hand. Jordan grinned at Marcus like he was a superhero. Mrs. Patterson stood up. Patricia would be so proud of you, Marcus. She always said you had the biggest heart of any child she'd ever known. I think you just forgot it for a while. I did forget, Marcus admitted. But I'm remembering now. That night, after everyone had left, Marcus sat on the porch of his childhood home. Sarah came out and sat beside him, wrapped in a jacket against the cold. Sarah said quietly, "When you first found us here, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd failed my children completely. But you saved us. You gave us more than a house. You gave us hope. You saved yourself," Marcus said. "I just opened a door. You did all the hard work." We both know that's not true. Sarah looked at him. "But here's what I want you to know. You didn't just help me and my kids. You helped yourself too. That first night I met you, you looked like a man who'd forgotten how to smile. Now you look alive." Marcus thought about that. She was right. For 3 years, since his mother's death, he'd been going through the motions of living without actually being alive. He'd been rich, but empty, successful, but purposeless. "You're right," he said softly. "I was lost. I think I'm starting to find my way back." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the neighborhood settle in for the night. Lights glowed in windows. Families were having dinner, doing homework, living their lives, and for the first time in years, Marcus felt like he belonged somewhere. 3 months after launching the foundation, Marcus thought he had everything figured out. He'd helped 5 families move into transitional housing. He'd created job training programs. Everything was going perfectly until it was. It started with the Mitchells. They were the second family Marcus had helped, moving them into one of his renovated properties. He'd paid for Mr. Mitchell's commercial driving license course. He'd bought them furniture. He'd even helped their daughter get into a better school. Then one morning, Marcus got a call from the property manager he'd hired. "Mr. Chen, we have a problem. The Mitchells haven't paid utilities in 2 months. And when I went to check on the property, I found they'd sublet the basement to another family without permission." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What?" He drove to the property immediately. When he knocked on the door, Mrs. Mitchell answered with a defensive look on her face. "Before you say anything," she started, "we needed the money." "You don't understand what it's like. I gave you free housing," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice calm. "The only condition was that you follow the rules." "Your rules," Mrs. Mitchell snapped. "You rich people think you can control everyone just because you have money. You want to feel like a hero? Fine. But don't pretend you understand our lives." Marcus stood there, stunned. He'd tried to help, and this was the response. Anger bubbled up inside him. Maybe David was right. Maybe he was being taken advantage of. The situation got worse. The Rodriguez family's son, Tommy, who Marcus had given a scholarship to, got arrested for shoplifting. When Marcus visited him, Tommy barely looked at him. "Why'd you do it?" Marcus asked. "You had everything going for you?" Tommy shrugged. "Because I wanted to. Because your charity money made me feel like a charity case. Everyone at school knows I'm the poor kid who needed a handout. You think your money fixes everything? It just made things worse." Marcus left that meeting feeling crushed. Was he actually helping anyone? Or was he just making himself feel better? Then came the worst blow. Sarah sat him down one evening with tears in her eyes. "Marcus, I need to tell you something. The hospital offered me a full-time position with benefits. Better pay, better hours." "That's great," Marcus said. "That's what we've been working toward." "It's in New Jersey," Sarah finished quietly. "The hospital is in Newark. We'd have to move." Marcus felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. "Move, I know. I've been crying about it for days. The kids love it here. Maya's thriving with her programming. Jordan made the basketball team. Emma has her friends and her school play. But this job, Marcus, it's our chance at real stability. Health insurance, retirement benefits, everything I've been trying to give them. When? Marcus asked, his voice hollow. 2 weeks. That night, Marcus sat alone in his penthouse for the first time in months. He'd been spending almost every evening in Brooklyn, but tonight he needed to think. His phone kept buzzing with problems. The foundation was burning through money faster than expected. 3 of the 5 families he'd helped were struggling, and now Sarah and the kids were leaving. David called. Marcus, I heard about the problems with your foundation. I hate to say I told you so, but then don't, Marcus said, and hung up. He looked around his expensive apartment. Maybe he'd been fooling himself. Maybe he wasn't cut out for this charity work. Maybe he should just go back to what he knew, making money, closing deals. Staying emotionally disconnected from everything. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Maya. Can you come over? I need to show you something important. Marcus almost said no. He wasn't in the mood to face the family that was about to leave him. But something in Maya's message made him change his mind. When he arrived at the house, he found all 3 kids waiting in the living room. Sarah stood in the kitchen doorway, watching nervously. What's going on? Marcus asked. Maya opened her laptop. Remember that safe haven app I was building? The one to help homeless families? Well, I finished it. And I showed it to my computer science teacher, and she showed it to someone at a tech nonprofit, and they want to meet with me. They said it could actually help thousands of people. Jordan jumped in. And I talked to my basketball coach about maybe transferring to a school in Newark. He said some of the best programs in the state are there. I could get better training. Emma tugged on Marcus's sleeve. And my teacher said they do the Wizard of Oz play every year in lots of schools. I can be Dorothy somewhere else too. Marcus looked at the 3 children, confused. I don't understand. You're telling me you're okay with leaving? No, Maya said firmly. We're telling you that Mom taught us something. She taught us that home isn't a place. It's people. You became our family, Marcus. Even if we move to New Jersey, that doesn't change. As Sarah stepped forward, her eyes red from crying, you gave us more than a house. You gave us confidence. You showed my children that people can be good, that the world isn't all hardship and disappointment. Maya has dreams now because you believed in her. Jordan has confidence because you came to his games. Emma feels safe because you made her feel like she mattered. But you're leaving, Marcus said, his voice cracking. We have to, Sarah said gently. This job is too important for my family's future. But Marcus, you changed our lives. That doesn't end just because we moved 30 miles away. Emma hugged his leg. You'll visit us, right? And we'll visit you. Marcus knelt down and hugged Emma back, fighting tears. Jordan joined the hug, then Maya, then Sarah. They all stood there in a group embrace. Marcus realized something. He hadn't failed. The Mitchells taking advantage, Tommy's arrest, families struggling, that wasn't failure. That was life. Real, messy, complicated life. You couldn't save everyone. You couldn't fix everything. But that didn't mean you shouldn't try. I'll visit every week, Marcus promised. And you better keep working on that app, Maya. We're going to launch it properly. Really? Maya's face lit up. Really? I'll invest in it. We'll make it happen. That night, after saying goodbye, Marcus drove back to Manhattan with tears streaming down his face. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude. He'd spent 3 years after his mother's death, thinking he'd lost everything that mattered. But in the last few months, he'd discovered something. Love isn't something you lose when people leave. It's something you carry with you, something that grows every time you give it away. The next morning, Marcus called an emergency foundation meeting. When his small board gathered, he stood up with a determined look. I know we've hit some obstacles, he said. Some of the families we've helped have let us down. Some have taken advantage. But I've realized something. We're not trying to have a perfect success rate. We're trying to give people chances. And if we help 10 families and only 3 succeed, those 3 changed lives are worth it. Mrs. Patterson, who joined the board, nodded. Your mother used to say, You can't save everyone, but you can save someone. And to that someone, you're everything. Marcus felt his mother's presence in those words. Exactly. So here's what we're going to do. We're expanding. More properties, more programs, more families. And yes, some will fail. Some will disappoint us, but some will soar. And those are the ones we're doing this for. 3 days before Sarah and the kids moved to New Jersey, the neighborhood threw them a goodbye party. Marcus had never seen anything like it. People brought food, gifts, hugs. These neighbors had watched Sarah's family go from homeless to thriving, and it had given everyone hope. As Marcus watched Sarah laugh with Mrs. Patterson, watched Maya show off her app to curious neighbors, watched Jordan and Emma play with other kids, he realized something profound. He hadn't saved this family. They'd saved him. They'd reminded him that wealth without purpose is just numbers in a bank account. They'd shown him that success isn't about how much you make. It's about how much you give. And even though they were leaving, the impact they'd made on his life would last forever. 1 year after that frantic phone call from Mrs. Patterson, Marcus sat in his childhood home, reading a letter. His hands trembled as he read Maya's words for the 3rd time. "Dear Marcus," the letter began. "Remember when you found us in your basement? You asked Mom if we were thieves? I was so scared that day, but now I understand something. We didn't steal from you. We gave you something back, the part of yourself you'd lost." Marcus's eyes blurred with tears. Maya had just gotten accepted to MIT with a full scholarship. But it wasn't the acceptance letter that made him emotional. It was what came next. "My Safe Haven app launched last month," she wrote. "Because of your investment and mentorship, we've already helped 847 families find resources. That's 847 families who might not be sleeping on the street tonight. My computer science professor said I have a gift for coding. But you know what I really have? I have the memory of a man who saw 3 scared kids and chose kindness over anger. That's my real gift, knowing that compassion exists in this world." Marcus set down the letter and looked around the living room. The house looked different now. After Sarah moved to New Jersey, Marcus had made a decision that shocked everyone. He'd moved back into his childhood home permanently. He'd rented out his penthouse and returned to his roots. The foundation had grown beyond anything he'd imagined. 42 families had gone through the program. 28 had successfully transitioned to permanent housing and stable employment. Yes, some had failed. Some had taken advantage. But those 28 families represented over 90 people whose lives had fundamentally changed. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Mrs. Patterson walked in without waiting for an answer, the way she always did now. "Marcus, dear." "You have visitors," she said with a knowing smile. Before Marcus could respond, Emma burst through the door. She was 8 now, taller, but still the same bright spirit. "Marcus, we came to surprise you." Jordan followed, now almost as tall as Marcus. "Hey man, Coach said I might get scouted by college teams next year. Can you believe it?" Sarah came in last, looking healthier and happier than Marcus had ever seen her. "Surprise? We took the weekend off to celebrate Maya's MIT acceptance." Maya stood in the doorway, grinning. She held up a small box. "I brought you something." They all gathered in the living room, the same room where Marcus had first decided not to press charges a year ago. Maya handed him the box. Inside was a small app icon printed on a plaque to Safe Haven logo. "The first version of the app," Maya explained. "I wanted you to have it. None of this would exist without you." Marcus shook his head. "Maya, I just opened a door. You walked through it. This is all you." "It's not true," Sarah said softly. "Marcus, do you remember what you said that first night? You said someone gave you a chance once, and you were passing it forward. Well, you didn't just pass it forward. You started a chain reaction." She pulled out her phone and showed Marcus something. It was a news article. Second Chance Foundation inspires similar programs across 3 states. Marcus stared at the screen in shock. "What? Your foundation has inspired 12 other successful business people to start similar programs," Sarah explained. "They're calling it the Second Chance Movement. Marcus, you've helped spark something bigger than just our neighborhood. You've changed how people think about giving back." Jordan jumped in excitedly. "And guess what? My basketball coach started a program giving free coaching to kids who can't afford club teams. He said you inspired him." Emma tugged Marcus's hand. "And my school started a fund so kids like me can do plays even if their families can't pay for costumes. They named it the Emma Johnson Fund, but I told them it should be the Marcus Chen Fund." Marcus felt overwhelmed. "I didn't do this for recognition," Maya said quietly. "That's exactly why it matters. You didn't do it for publicity or tax breaks or to look good. You did it because it was right, and people noticed." Mrs. Patterson spoke up from her chair in the corner. "Your mother used to say that one candle can light 1,000 others without diminishing its own flame. That's what you've done, Marcus. You lit a candle, and now the whole neighborhood is brighter." That evening, after Sarah and the kids left to head back to New Jersey, Marcus walked through his old neighborhood. It looked different now. The playground had been renovated. New businesses had opened. Houses were painted. But more than the physical changes, there was something else: hope. He passed the Rodriguez house. Tommy, the young man who'd been arrested for shoplifting, was outside tutoring younger kids in math. When he saw Marcus, he walked over. "Mr. Chen, I owe you an apology," Tommy said. "When I got arrested, I blamed you. But I was really blaming myself. You gave me an opportunity, and I screwed it up. But you know what you did after? You visited me. Even after I messed up, you didn't give up on me. That changed something in my head. How are you doing now?" Marcus asked. "I graduated with my associate degree last month, starting at Brooklyn College in the fall, and I volunteer at the foundation twice a week. I figure if someone gave me a second chance, I should help give others the same." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I'm proud of you, Tommy. I'm proud of me too now. That's the difference." As Marcus continued his walk, his phone rang. It was David, his old business partner who'd criticized him so harshly a year ago. "Marcus, I need to talk to you," David said. "If you're calling to say I told you so, I'm calling to apologize," David interrupted, "and to ask for advice. I've been watching what you've done this year, and I realized something. I've made $30 million in the last 5 years, and I'm miserable. You gave away $10 million, and you seem happier than I've ever seen you. I want to know how to do what you're doing."